Yo, yo.
Am I blurry? Am I?
Yeah.
I am?
You are.
These idiots. Okay, I'm coming right back in. Hold on.
You are, bro. Nothing puts Joey on tilt more than him coming in blurry. Morning, everybody. As you guys can see, I'm Molina and Mike. That was Joey Ryan. Still working on getting Corey. I got to follow up with them sometime today, this morning, see if we can get him on. Corey's not the most tech savvy person on earth, that's for sure. So, but we will not. We usually get pretty good guests, and I'm gonna try my best for you guys. So, yo.
Man. Do I look better?
Actually, it's still a little blurry.
Oh, God.
I mean, it's not. It's just, yeah, it's a little blurry. It's a little blurry.
I think we're going to have to go with it. We're having technical problems here. We use a service called Restream. They're dogging it hardcore.
Well, we used to use a service called Restream. We may
Yeah,
not be
we might be changing, but part of the problem is with this service, most people will stream on OBS. That requires more technical ability, and we've done that before, but it's not as easy as doing it on Restream. Restream makes it easy. You can add guests, things like that. Boom, 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 super easy. But you can't control things like the bit rate and things coming out of it. So it's a problem. I'm really unhappy right now. And they keep telling me, check your internet settings, blah, blah, blah. Mike, I got smoking fast internet. Like, it's ridiculous. I'll share my screen right now and do an internet speed test. And you'll just be
I mean,
floored.
if you want, I can give you some tech advice since I'm
Yeah.
the clear one of the group.
Wow.
I don't know what you're doing. I don't know what kind of camera you got. I know we didn't have that problem before. So,
I mean, my camera's like an awesome camera. When it's clear, it's really good.
Well, yeah. I mean, when it's clear, you look like $1 million, son.
I'm gonna message these donkeys right now.
When you don't, no, we got a show to do. Listen, I got a hard time to be out of here. We got a lot of stuff going on in the pool world. International Open is going on, Joey. I've been catching a little bit of it. It's been interesting time.
Yeah, I saw you did a post about Roland and Shane, and I didn't catch that match. So take us through that match and what happened there, because I didn't understand from your post. It kind of seemed like maybe Shane was behind, and then it was like, well, maybe Shane was ahead. Sometimes you don't always describe things in great detail, Molina Mike.
No, so Shane's down 7-4 to Roland, going to 10 alternate break. Steals a game on Roland's break, protects a game on his break. Great match. Got it back to I think 9-9 or 8-9. Still stole another game, and then Roland just back-to-back games let the wheels come off. Made mistakes at the time in the match when you don't have any more room to make any more mistakes. I think at 9-8 he had a chance to put Shane away. Misses a 5-ball down the rail that he's supposed to make 101 times out of 100. And then I think he followed that up with unfortunate scratch at Hill. So it was yeah.
Roland's an amazing player, but that's kind of like his signature, right? Is to kind of come up just a little short. And it's a shame, because as good as he plays, you would want to see him winning big events, and he just doesn't seem to get across the finish line. Puts himself in position to win a lot, but doesn't get across the finish line a lot.
Yeah, I mean, he called himself Mr. Runner-Up, Mr. Bridesmaid for a while because he was
did he
coming in
call
second
himself
place.
that?
Yeah, he did. He's got a good sense of humor about it. But, came up a little short against Shane, much to the delight of a lot of fans in attendance. But, if I was going to pick someone out of this group, and especially up top, that was kind of a dark horse, Roland might have been that guy, because that one right below with Federer, who he's playing right now against Yap, is just so stacked and tough to fade,
Yeah, it's an interesting matchup there with Yap and Federer coming off their recent match that they had where Yap got the win, and so you see there he's up 5-3 on Federer in this match. So it'll be interesting to see if Federer can come back and get revenge here. But it looks like Yap's doing pretty well so far.
Hey, I got some homework for you. Well, and by homework I mean work you can do right now instead of argue with Restream.
Okay.
Um, bring up Ed Ladawi's post and go find that Rodney comment. I want to talk about that because
Ed Ladawi.
that was pretty interesting. Kudos to Ed because he texted me late last night telling me there was issues with the racking and they were trying to get it resolved. And this is already late at night for me, and I'm in Central Time, and they were still there working at the International, trying to figure out what was the issue with the rack out there on the Bigfoot.
Oh.
Um, I saw this morning that he had, or I woke up this morning and saw his post, and come to find out, he they were up just trying to figure out what was causing the problem. Did you find the post there, Joe?
Yeah, I'm gonna share it in a second here. Talking about this one?
Yeah, let me turn this on. Oh, that's
Uh,
blurry.
should I
Okay, here
make
we
it
go.
bigger?
See if you can zoom in a little bit. But what I really want to see is go find that Rodney comment in there, because that
Okay.
Rodney comment was one that I really want to have a little, just a short discussion about and just see.
Okay.
There's Darren Renfro. It's a live show. Don't worry about it, Joe.
I'm trying. What do you want me to do?
I'm
Here we
just
go.
kidding.
Okay.
I'm just kidding.
Uh, so the object is where it's automatic to make a ball. Good Lord, have we regressed over the decades? And people think the players today are better than before. These guys wouldn't know what to do when we had to break slug racks from guys like Johnny Archer. We would play sets and never make a ball in the break. Is that the comment you wanted?
That's the one. That's the one.
Well,
Yeah.
it's
It's
so true. You know, I used to play on the Planet Pool Tour, Mike, and it was Rack Your Own, right? And you know who played on that tour when they were still playing really good was Keith McCready. And you know who rarely won on that tour was Keith. And some tournaments he'd be playing better than anyone, but he just didn't focus on the rack. He just rolled them up there. And so I think just years of getting used to rolling the balls up and putting them down for your opponent and not really being meticulous to detail. And then when you have players who maybe didn't play as good as Keith, like Brandon Schuff or Mike Davis at the time, who were meticulous about how they would rack the balls, and they'd break and make two balls on the break and get out from everywhere. So it's a different era for sure.
Yeah, I agree with you. I kind of like that old school, whack it
Well,
hard and not have it be so precise, because there's a lot more randomness to it. A lot more, you got to figure it out and you got to work at getting out, right? You got to work and you got to
yeah.
use, all those. You got a tool belt, right? And you got to use every one of those tools in order to be able to get your ass out of that rack. And I kind of like Rodney calling out, the generation of today. Maybe I sound old agreeing with him. I don't know,
You
but
really
it's
do. You really do.
yeah,
But
yeah.
when you look at those old videos from like the Sands and stuff of pro players playing back in the day, Earl and Efren, and there were a lot of racks where they would break them, and it was just poof, even with a neutral racker, not a whole lot of action happening on the break, and clusters and problems and things like that, and it's just changed. It's a different game now, and I think most fans who have played pool, they don't like the idea of pounding the rack and a ball not going in. Kind of feel entitled to it.
Yeah, and you see a lot of the players today, even with the 9 ball, 9 on the spot with the break box, it's still a finesse shot. If you
Yeah.
see the way that they're trying to cut the one in, now you still get, it's not as consistent post break as you would, let's say, with the template and the 1 on the spot, but because you're having balls go into each other, and that's where you'll come out with, these odd combinations of the post break layouts. But I like, it's such a balance because as much as seeing a slug can make you go, like the way that they have to work in order to get out of the rack, I love that part of it. So I don't know where that sweet spot is, and I know we've had this debate a few times on the show, but I don't know, man. I don't know. At least kudos to Ed for putting in the effort to try to get it resolved, I
I,
guess.
I kind of feel like if it's a skill shot, like 1 on the spot 9 ball, anybody can make that corner ball every time. But with the break box and the 9 on the spot with the matchroom format now, I feel like it's a skill shot. and there's still luck involved, right? The cue ball can come back across, hit the nine, go down in the near the bottom corners, which is going to make a really hard opening shot, or it could go towards the side pocket and scratch, like we saw with Albin. So I don't know. I think that's kind of the coolest format for me, is using your skill to make a ball and then hoping that the balls work out well for you after that. And then
Is
maybe having to use exceptional skill from there on a push out or a really difficult opener, you know?
Yeah, I agree with you. You know, there's got to be that balance. I feel like while I feel like the basis of the rules are gonna stay pretty consistent from here on. At least I'm hopeful. You know, fingers crossed. Um, but there might still be some little slight tweaks here and there. Like, do you remember Darren's idea on the jump cue?
No, what was it?
So I want to say Darren said something along the lines of, if you hook yourself, you can't use a jump cue, but if your opponent
Oh,
hooks
yeah,
you,
yeah,
you
yeah.
can do it. Like I think it was once or twice in a rack, or maybe
I
three
like
times or
that.
something. I
I
like that
really
because
do.
you kind of get rewarded for you get to bail yourself out if you hook yourself.
And there's no real judgment on that where you're going to have controversy, right? It's pretty clear cut. Either you left yourself the shot, you can't use a jump shot, but if your opponent leaves you the shot, you can pull out the jump cue. So, yeah, I mean, I think that would be an interesting take. I'd rather see that than a tournament where they're like no jump cues.
Well, see, this is where I mean, look at the tournament we're talking about now. It's no jump cues, you know.
You're
So,
pretty thirsty today.
well, I haven't had any caffeine at all today, so I'm a little bit
You're getting
behind.
that caffeine down quick.
I'm pounding them down. Um,
Well, it looks
but
like Federer stormed ahead 6-5 in that match with Yap,
wow,
which is,
He was down 5-3, I think, just a little bit
yes, he
ago.
was.
Yeah. But the Bigfoot's going to be finishing up today. SVB is awaiting the winner of this match. It's a race to 10. Pretty. I think this is whenever you start getting paid a little bit. Um, moving into the money round, so to speak. So, let's move along because last night they had some matches as well. Joe, Chang
Yeah.
Jun Lim defeats Jason Shaw pretty easily late last night from a
Bit of a
scoreline of ten
shocker
four.
there for us. I mean, I know I told when we were talking about this tournament before, I mentioned, what a great player Chang was, and at that point you were saying that he's kind of underachieved lately. I think, not to put words in your mouth, but I think that's kind of what you were alluding to. And then I kind of conceded and agreed with that. But yet he comes up with a big win here, 10-4 over Jason Shaw. I didn't catch the match, but that's a pretty decisive victory there for Chang. And with Jason's shot making ability, we kind of felt like he might be the favorite on the 10-foot table here. So a little bit surprised to see that.
Well, Chang was hitting the ball in such a way that the mistakes that Jason had left on the table with the previous match with John, he just wasn't going to get away with here with Chang. It looked like Jason was using a wood shaft, a carbon fiber shaft. So I don't know if that played any factor. Maybe making a change right now. Um,
Wow, what a
but
time to make a change.
it's interesting for sure because just
After
given
Hanoi,
his
before Moscone?
yeah. It makes you wonder a little bit without a doubt. But listen, Chang Jun-lin, as much as I can, show you results where he has disappeared on tournament brackets, the guy, if you leave him an open table, 4.5 inch pockets, he's going to get out. Especially given how a lot of his play lately, especially his recent success, has been on a Chinese 8 foot table. I mean, eight ball table, right, where you got to really be dialed in when it comes to your shot making.
Are
So
those tables 9 foot though, Mike? Or are they a little smaller?
I think they're 9 footers. I
Yeah,
think
if you
so.
guys know in the chat, let us know. I've never played on one. Um, I've always wanted to. I think they're kind of cool. Obviously, they bring in a different dynamic with the cut of the pockets and the way you got to play balls. But I'm just not sure of the length of those tables, and I'd be curious to know.
Yeah. Federer changing it. Yeah. Yeah, I think Federer's going to be announcing his new equipment sponsor, coming up pretty soon as well. So I'm sure fans are going to be excited and looking forward to hearing that also. But yeah, I mean, for Jason, you know, this is his time of year usually. But I still expect him to have a pretty good run at the international because he's always had success here.
Yeah.
As far as going deep in the event and also have won it previously as well. So we'll see. But big win for Chang. It's not going to get any easier because you're going to have to face the winner of Conrad and Josh Filler. Josh defeats Alex 10-4. Conrad defeats Mario He 10-4, which I think I called that Conrad match, if I'm not
Yeah,
wrong.
well, we talked about how well Conrad had played, I think, at Derby on the 10-foot table, and certainly a convincing win there, 10-4. Back to real quick, back to Jason Shaw. Uh, Obviously, this 10 ball event is important to them, but the real event is the 9 ball event. He's 2 rounds through in that event, so I do look for big things out of him. He's playing Dennis Grabe. Will be his next match there. But yeah, I think Conrad was uh, probably our pick. I think you and I both picked him, even though Mario's been playing well, just won the American 14.1. And Filler gets by Alex Pagulayan. You had put up a little upset alert there on Alex, but it didn't come to fruition. Just said
His
that Filler had
his
had problems with him in the past.
Yeah, I mean his break is just such a it leaves him so far behind. You know,
Liability.
watch yeah, watching Alex try to break 10 ball is rough, and that's even with the template. So
I wonder
um,
why that is. I mean, a player of his caliber, if he spends a little bit of time on that, he'll get that breakdown. And maybe he just hasn't focused on it.
maybe it's just age too, Joe. You know,
Yeah.
Father Time's undefeated. But the one thing that I'll say, watching that match in particular, even though it was a 10-4 scoreline, is there was a lot of safety play, a lot of watching them, kick at balls 2-3 rails, a lot of trying to figure out how to put them in like the worst possible spot where like you're playing safe, but you're also playing caroms off the one ball or something to like really hide the one ball and even worse. But it was just beautiful to watch. Two top players who know how to use the table to their advantage and to make it a disadvantage for their opponent, and just see those wheels turning, and
Yeah.
then watching them execute. It was a lot of fun. Like that match out of all of them, I enjoyed more than anything up to this point.
Yeah. Who do you like in this Filler Conrad match?
Yeah, I mean, Josh is probably going to go in there. I'd say probably a 2 or 3 game favorite over Conrad just for the namesake alone. Betting wise, you're probably looking at, Conrad maybe getting the 3 as more of favor for you. Because you got to win score line of 10-6 or better if you'd be laying it. Um, but Josh, I mean, and rightfully so, he's going to be the one. I think he was in the finals last year, loses to Federer. So he's going to look to make another run. And he's in a pretty favorable spot because, in this round outside of the Shane match, this might have been the softest match for the more favored opponent, if you think about it like that. So
What, Josh and
uh,
Conrad or
yeah,
potentially
yeah,
Josh
yeah,
and King?
yeah. Because like Shane was a pretty big favorite over Roland, although Roland would have covered whatever game line there was, right?
Yeah.
Chang and Shaw was pretty evenly matched. I would say probably on the betting line. But Conrad Filler, no disrespect to Conrad, Josh is going to go in there a few game favorite. So um, as far as just like for the opponent and the namesake, right? Conrad just isn't the name like a Jason or a Yap or Federer or decorated like these guys are.
Yeah. Yeah. And in that Federer match, it's showing 7-5 Federer over Aloysius Yap now. So assuming Federer moves on, which is a big assumption at this point, it would be an all USA semifinal.
That
I'm always
still
going to
makes
chuckle when I say that.
That
Uh,
still makes me like a little cringe. I'm not gonna lie, Joe. A
yeah,
little bit.
so Shane versus Federer in that semifinal potentially, or Shane versus Yap. You think Shane will get that done and win that match?
I think he'll have his hands full. Like anything else when it comes to template 10 ball, it's gonna come down to the break. I think at this point, I mean, Federer's just he's such a brilliant mind, and is a real student of the game where Shane's already kind of put in that work, so to speak. Um, and so when it comes to like the post break play, I'd probably give the edge to Federer. There was a couple of balls, at least in that Roland match, where I saw Shane leave on the table. Where good luck leaving that up there with Federer because he's going to take your rack and then he's going to probably do pretty good work on his own. So, and we've been playing a lot of 9 ball on the spot. We've been playing a lot of this 10 ball with the Pro Beard Series using a triangle rack and used to
Hmm.
seeing, Federer breaking from the side. But let's not forget when you put a template and 10 ball with Federer, he's arguably a top 4 breaker in the world. So if he spent any time just knocking off that rust and getting that dialed in. And I'd imagine for 16,000, he put in some work on there.
Top
Um,
4, Mike? I mean, isn't he the best?
I mean, I
10
wouldn't.
ball breaking? He's got to be the best with a template.
Who is he beating? Who is he beating playing a long race, a 10 ball template? I mean,
Who, Federer?
yeah, beat Jeff DeLuna.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know. I don't know what 3 players you put above Federer Gorst for a 10 ball
I mean,
break.
that guy right there waiting for him, I'd probably put ahead of him right now.
Really?
Just for resume alone. You
Hmm.
know, Shane's cut his teeth to be known as one of the best 10 ball breakers on the planet, playing, the Dennises of the world, playing all these big names over and playing Chang Jun Lin, in big money sets. Not to
Who are
say
the
that
other 2
Federer.
you have in that top 4? I'm putting you on a spot here, but I'm just curious.
Oh man, that's interesting. Yeah, you really are putting me on the spot, buddy. Now that I think
You
about
just
it.
you can't throw something out there and not be held accountable. What
Yeah,
about
no
Tyler?
kidding.
Would you put Tyler in that?
I think Tyler's probably from the outside looking in, but he's close.
Yeah.
Tyler's 10 ball break can be pretty deadly as well. And I think that's he's earned that. Um, but I don't know. I can't put him above Federer. That's for sure. At least not yet. Um, yeah, I don't know. I'd have to chew on it a little bit. Chang would be on that short list whenever he's got it right. Um, I'm trying to think, man. You you got to go beat
Nick
great.
De Leon.
I mean, what Nick? I just
He's
left
got
out
a
the
great 10 ball.
conversation because he's just the
He's
goat in Arizona, right?
he's got a great 10 ball break.
Yeah.
My buddy Nick.
Okay,
uh,
so maybe a top three, somewhere
okay.
around there.
Just because you
Yeah,
can't think of 4. Okay, got it.
yeah. Well, I'm only working my way through the first cup of coffee,
Okay,
so
sorry.
um, yeah. But
Uh,
Federer. Look, Federer's got to play bigger name players, in a big set in order to get that title.
well,
Not take anything away from his greatness, but you don't
I
get that by playing like Jeff playing 10 ball.
I kind of think that's going to be a problem because nobody's going to play him.
Well, that's a big part of it. Yeah, sure. You
Yeah.
know, maybe if they're dodging it, maybe that's
That's
a
that's one of the reasons we see
that's respect
Federer
as well.
matching up in one pocket quite a bit, right? Because he can't get the rotation action. If you look at the way, with the team that he has behind him and the way he's been managed, um, it's easy to kind of, I guess, throw in your opinions about how he's been managed. But I bet you that there's some hardcore gamblers out there that say they've missed a huge opportunity, especially with how much he's gotten into one pocket now and just jumped right to the top of the one pocket rankings, essentially.
Well, I
Where
mean,
he
there was.
probably could have spent 2 years beating, the I don't know, Hennessy's and Richie Richardsons and players like that to pad his pockets, and now he's right up there with the top 4 or so one pocket players in the world.
Well, I remember. I think it was just last year, the year prior, where he was supposed to play Roberto. And then he kind of just skips that, plays Tony. We all seen what he did to Tony,
Yeah.
right? Played him twice now. That
Right. He could
Roberto
play
game.
Roberto. He could have played Chip. He could have played Josh. He could have played Evan. He could have played a
Well, he
lot of
played. Well,
players
he
in
played.
that like really good one pocket player realm,
He
but he
played
kind of
Chip.
stepped right up.
Yeah, I mean, he
Yeah.
played Chip.
Yeah, he did play. Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with you. I mean, it's a matter of that kid's also a competitor
Yeah.
too. And so I think to say I want to be the best is something that's just here with him. And he's a born winner and a
Yeah.
and a workhorse, right? So I think like if you're going to get a glass of water, he wants to beat you to the jug. So he's got that kind of spirit in him, which I admire, right? But from a dollars and cents standpoint, maybe there's some there might have been a better road traveled.
Yeah,
Um,
and I don't mean anything against his camp because I'm terrible at that stuff. I'm the guy that'll walk into a pool room and say, "Hey, I play pretty good. Does somebody want to play?" I'm not going to sit there and kind of be on the stall. So I completely get it, and I get Federer's competitive nature and how he wants to be the best and just pretty much play anybody. But I'm just saying, I think they left some money on the table.
Well, yeah, I mean, at this point, it is what it is, right? One pocket's probably going to be the game for the kid, going forward. Shane's not getting any younger, although I've been hearing, some potential talks about them finally getting together
Do
and
you
playing a
think
decent set.
do you think Federer leaving Q Tech helps that to happen?
Sure. Yeah, I think so. I don't think that was necessarily the biggest sticking point, like maybe the fans would make it out to be. I think it was more of um, making sure that the players got taken care of on top of whatever gambling is done.
Hmm.
From what I've heard anyway, that was more of a sticking point. And the other thing is, which is just the reality of life, uh, there's not a lot of windows of opportunity to be able to play these matches because the calendar is getting so hectic. Everyone's traveling all over the world.
Yeah.
Uh, it doesn't seem to be letting up any. So everything has to be done far in advance in order to line it up to where guys can play at some place like maybe the Derby or something. Where you can kind of get your money in. You're not going to get this 3 day race to 100 type match, but maybe you can get a race to 25 in a night or something.
You
So
know, Mike, now that you mentioned it, think about how much has changed since really in the last 18 to 24 months. We're not seeing those big, long, two-man tournaments anymore. We're just not seeing them. It seemed like we were on a run there where every month or every other month you had Shane versus Dennis, Skyler versus Dennis, Federer versus whoever. It just seems like those have dried up. Yeah.
well, there's a lot that goes into it, and I think part of that, we talked about this just a second ago, when it comes to the players being compensated, I feel like the players are trying to negotiate more to where they're getting guaranteed money, but it's a lot of risk for the room or whoever's putting up the money, you
Yeah.
know, and where it doesn't necessarily make a whole lot of sense. What's that noise, Joe? Is that
Yeah.
you?
The stupid neighbor has people out here doing the weed whacker. Okay, is it
Okay,
real loud?
yeah, a little bit, a little bit.
Yeah.
But
Sorry.
no, it's all right. But that's and while I can understand, players want to get compensated, you got to make sure that the ones who are feeding you are left, to be satisfied as well. So got to make sure that their bellies even are half full, right? Because if rooms across the country are the ones putting the money, but they're the ones taking the bath on the deal, the players are getting compensated. Well, then word kind of gets out, right? Putting up X amount of dollars isn't necessarily the best move, right?
Yeah,
So
it's
then,
tough. And they try to sell the VIP seats and then, they're not successful with that sometimes. There's ways to make money from those events, but it takes a grind. It takes somebody out there really pushing it to sell the VIP seats, to sell pay-per-view or sell whatever it is they're going to do so that they can compensate the players for making the trip out there, and then obviously the players can make money if they win the match too, but there's a lot of moving parts there.
well, players got to do a better job of selling the fight. And that's one thing that Federer is really aware about. The kid's got a sharp mind and knows that it's got to be a little spicy pre-fight in order to get people excited.
Yeah.
So I love that calling out that he did of shame, and it was still done, you know, tastefully and respectfully, right?
Yeah.
But you gotta poke the bear a little bit, right? I'm not saying turn Pool into the WWE, but the Pool needs more personality, because if not, what you're gonna get left with is go buy the AccuStats pay per view, turn on the button, and go
Yeah.
see how that arena looks, at 8 o'clock at night, because that's what you're gonna get left with,
Yeah.
if you're a room owner. So, and that's with world class players that are guaranteed to be there, let alone just two guys that are gonna be there over, let's say, 1 to 3 days. So, it's a tough ask, and players have to do a better job of helping to build up the pre-fight stuff, because
Yeah.
Pool needs some jabbing a little bit, Joe. You know
Yeah. So, Mike, I got to ask you the commentary from the International Open. Mike Siegel's not my favorite guy. What he did to me when I was younger, he
what
probably
what
doesn't even.
what did he
You know,
do, Joe? I don't even know. What did he
come
do?
on, you've heard the story. I go
No, I
up
don't
to
know
him.
what you're talking about.
I go up to him at the Super Billiards Expo. He's got a booth with cues, and I'm like, "Hey, Mr. Siegel, really excited to meet you." And you go to shake his hand. He's like, "Yeah, kid, you gonna buy a cue? All right, get out of here."
Damn, did you like that, Joe?
I didn't like it.
Well,
It hurt my feelings.
I wouldn't have liked
So,
it. Had I known that, I wouldn't have been so nice to him yesterday.
were you?
No, I wasn't. No,
Oh,
no,
okay.
I wasn't.
Well, I got to catch a few minutes of it, and wow, it's just different, man. What'd you think?
Oh, it's brutal. It's. I mean, listen, I've never gotten brain freeze listening to someone do commentary before. You know,
Yeah,
like my head hurt listening to this dude, and he's still talking. He ain't stopped talking since yesterday. You know, and the guy just and poor Mark Wilson. I haven't always been the biggest fan of Mark Wilson's commentary. I've met Mark recently
I like his
over the last
commentary.
few years. I'm enjoying it more for sure.
Yeah, I like it.
But yeah, Mike is a is a different guy.
Well, the
You know,
problem is there's who does this beautifully is Carl Boyce, where there's times where he just doesn't say anything. You don't have to fill dead air. And I think some people think that if there's silence, you have to start talking automatically. The players are the stars. The players are
there's
doing
no
things on the
silence
table.
when he's in there. There's no silence. Mark can't
That's
even
my
get
point.
a word in edgewise. The guy's just look. There are a lot of parents I'm sure watching, right? Everyone knows what I'm talking about when I say this, but your kids were probably a little hopped up on sugar last night and we're just going a million miles an hour. That's Mike the whole time he's doing commentary. I mean, just going and going and going. And I'm
Yeah,
just for the life of me, you can add value to that experience by just giving little nuggets here or there. But when people are thirsty and you're pouring water on them nonstop, well now you're just drowning them, right?
yeah. It's
And
too
and
much.
that's it's way too much,
Yeah.
and but I
Look,
think it
he's a
goes
legend of the sport, Mike. He's a legend of the sport. He's got a lot of knowledge.
just because you're a legendary player doesn't mean you're going to be legendary in the booth, Joe.
Well,
You
that's
know,
my point is
yeah.
like to use your strengths. Your strengths are your knowledge of the game, your experience, and tell us about the shots, but not fill every gap of air. Oh man, this is
Yeah.
so loud. I'm sorry, Mike. I'm gonna mute real quick.
No, you're good. You're good. I think like there is that sweet spot. I don't think Mike's anywhere near that sweet spot, not even close. Um, but listen, I think it just goes back to part of that team putting on the production, right? Because you got to have awareness, man. Like if you have listened to that for 10 minutes, then you are aware enough to know, hey, this isn't working out. But not
Yeah,
only do they keep the show going like that, but then he's continuing to be in there, right? It really makes me just it completely leaves a bitter taste in your mouth when you're watching, and Poole is already look, you can have great players playing on the best equipment, using the best equipment themselves, but that's not going to move Poole in the right direction, right? Because a camera over a pool table with three old people in the seats isn't going to get people excited about it. It's all the bells and whistles around it. It's the production, it's the commentary, it's the atmosphere, it's you got to create that buzz, right? When you
you
have
get
something
the
as important,
feeling. Yeah, you get the feeling that he's used to being the center of attention, and
no,
he's making it about him. It's not about him. You're watching Rodney Morris at the table and, playing some other play. It's not about the guy behind the microphone. And when it is about the guy behind the microphone, that's a problem. And you and I have been pretty critical lately of commentators, and I kind of feel bad about it because it's not an easy job. And the truth is, you and I should do more of it. We should get out there and do more of it so people can
no,
knock us a little bit.
yeah,
But I
we
love
know
doing it.
we know our we well, I mean it's fun, but it's all with it's like anything else, right? It's all it's got to be portioned right, it
Yeah.
takes a certain kind of person, it takes a certain individual to be able to sit there and not sound redundant or like you're repeating yourself on certain things, and that's part of the beauty of the color and the text side of certain combinations of people, and we know who we're talking about,
It,
guys who just
to
do a
me,
really
it's
good
about
job.
humility, Mike. It's about humility. So, what I would love is when I was commentating a match and somebody would come into the comments and they would say, "Huh, who's that commentating?" Because I would always look at that as I said something insightful, but I didn't make it like back in 22 when I was playing blah blah blah, that kind of thing. It's just, hey, I think if he plays this ball with a little left hand spin, he can beat the scratch, come around two rails, and get shape on this ball. And sure enough, they pull it off, and then you see a comment like, "Who's commentating that match?" Right? And I think that's what it is. Commentators need to be, they need to add value, but not make it about themselves.
Yeah,
That's all I'll say.
it's not to be ugly or negative per se towards anyone or in particular. It's just it's tough, and this is like a how can you say, like an industry wide issue right now that I feel like we're in, where you just have this generation of fans who just, those guys can do no wrong, right?
Yeah,
Like there's just, they were my heroes growing up. I want to listen to them all, and it's not easy on the ears, and for
yeah,
the vast majority of, but like they only hear the positives, right? You got to have people that are willing to kind of keep it real with you too, and let you know, hey, this isn't working out. There's other guys that can do just as great of a job, but they create like this really awesome experience. Like I saw Jeremy in Florida. Why the hell ain't Jeremy over there when he's done it before in years past, working
yeah.
at the international? So uh,
Making $40 a pop on races to three, challenge the pro.
well, then in that case, I guess I understand why he's over there.
I was thinking about that. If it started at like 8 o'clock at night, how many races to three could you win before 2 a.m. and the bar closes at $40 a pop?
He's running,
You know
Joe.
what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
I could see it now.
But you
Somebody loses their race to three, they want to shake his hand and talk to him, and he's like, "Next, next."
Yeah. We see a lot of comments about like IQ and stuff like that and things that you're mentioning, but you still got to have personality and charisma, and you got to be able to have your finger on the pulse to when to
Humility.
give it a little gas and when to ease up off the gas,
Yeah,
and that's just something that um, you're going to have to just get a feel for. And I hate to break some hearts, those Mike Siegel fans, and he's a legend and all that, but he's brutal on the microphone, man. I mean, the guy just will not be quiet, and he won't let you enjoy it. I've if people are going out of their way to say something a little negative, that means that there's been hours of built up for them to get to that point to where they finally just had enough, And so, who's been listening out there that hasn't heard the same thing and know that, hey, this isn't necessarily working out so well. You know,
yeah.
take 2 weeks off and then quit.
Well, Molina, listen, this show's been fun, but I'm blurry. I got a yard guy out
Give me the
here
winner.
blowing
Give
the
me the
air
winner
thing.
before we let you go. Give me the winner. We got I don't know what the score is with Federer right now, but he was up. I
Federer
know with yeah.
is, let's
It's
see,
7-7. There you go. 7-7. You got
7-7.
you got Chang waiting the winner of Filler and Conrad. Shane waiting the winner of Yap and Federer. Give me the winner of the Bigfoot because it ends tonight.
I'm gonna go with the app.
Wow, he may not even get past Federer. That's pretty strong. Okay, that's a bold pick there, son.
Let's
I'm
do it.
going. I'm going with Filler. I'm going with Filler winning the Bigfoot. So I don't know how much of a limb that is to go out on, but we'll see.
Yeah.
And Franco, we see your comment. I'm still going to work on Corey. Pray for me. That's all I'm going to say. So I got to run. We'll see you guys later. Thanks everybody for hanging out with us. Shout out to all of our sponsors up here, all of these guys down here. Check out our Patreons. We appreciate all you guys, and we'll try to do something. Are you free tonight, Joe?
Yes.
All right, let's do something tonight. We'll holler at you guys later.